So unfortunately, we have a quick change in the program. Due to a scheduling issue, Alan Kay wasn't able to make it. He made every possible effort to send us a video. We received it, but the disc is corrupt. So we can't play Alan's talk. However, as luck would have it, we're in a position to have Steve Wozniak wrap up this afternoon's conversation.
I'm almost tempted to speak loudly and say, skip this.
That's right. That's right. You can do that.
Yeah, I speak pretty loudly. Wow, so Alan Kay is not here. What did he do, send a floppy? You know, it is just amazing that people of his stature, you know, the minds I've met and heard here today just blow me away. They're so far in the right kind of thinking, the way I like to think. And Alan Kay is one of those super geniuses. I look at people that sort of see the world and they see things that those of us who live a straightforward life. I think of myself as closer to a normal person. And Alan's got one of those minds that is just out there in outer space. I was very good at certain things in my life too. But, you know, it's a mind like Steve Jobs, and we had Jeff Raskin and Bill Atkinson, who developed HyperCard for Apple. And a few of these people over time, they aren't, even though they're working in technology, their minds are really well beyond that. So it's really an honor to Ted when these kind of people, you know, come to honor him and speak about him. And Ted, you know, although he's not that well recognized a name as something like my own, he did his work when it was, like it was explained, a little bit hard to understand. Look at everything we've got almost today in internet software and the idea of the links that are there. It came from his work. It didn't equal it. But look at every hardware device we have. Every hardware device we have, every smartphone, every computer, everything's changed our lives so much is based on chips that are based on the transistor. The invention of the transistor led to everything we have today. The inventors of the transistor aren't that well known except in the right community. William Shockley, one of the inventors, moved Shockley Labs to Mountain View, California, and that was the start of Silicon Valley, you know, which is so well known for this kind of stuff. But he's not that famous because he did his work long before his work was going to become important to people's lives. It's that sort of thing, and Ted's very similar. You know, the thing is, we also, Ted's work, how does it not kind of, why don't we keep moving more and let's go and change the internet and implement it? Nothing is technically impossible in that regard. It's not difficult at all, but you get into habits. We talk about you have to stick with the Microsoft answer. You have to kind of stick with what you had before. You have to be sort of compatible and move from it. You can't just wipe it out and redo it in an instant. But we get to habits, and that's the trouble. We don't want to give them up when they're bad. Like, why is 12 a.m. before 1 a.m. instead of after 11 a.m.? Why is 12 before 1 instead of after 11? These kind of things. Why do we even have months? I can't ever figure out any good reason for that. We should have had numbers of the day, except then I realized Roman numerals don't work so well. I first met Ted. I was speaking at Oxford outside of London at the university, and one person stood up, question and answers. He said, "Hi, my name is Ted Nelson." And I just acted calm, like it didn't even have any meaning to me. And he's like a god to me, you know. Inside, I'm just shaking. I have to go grab him right as soon as I'm done and find out if he's the Ted Nelson. I wasn't sure because he had a very important part in my whole life and background. Going back to the Homebrew Computer Club, where the ideas of computers for people were really becoming important to me and getting into me. The way it worked back then was we had a few great leaders of our club. And they usually came from a humanistic point of view. They weren't just technologists. They said, here are the social benefits that computers are going to bring to society. Education, communication, and the little geek like me was going to be, you know, writing programs and solving problems for our companies, and we were going to be more important than the big, huge companies. And I got into my head, I always was for the little guy, should be more important than the rich and the powerful. So mentality, I was also a conscientious objector and nonviolence, and like a lot of people that are here in this room today. And at our computer club, the Bible was computer lib, you know, and the people who spoke about it were Stanford professors of sociology. They weren't engineering people necessarily. And they were referring to this book and how we would have this glorious world and describing some of the links and the micropayments. wow. And I sat there quietly listening to all this, being influenced by great academic people that have been influenced by TED. And I'm listening to them tell these stories, and I'm thinking, I've got to be a part of this. My life is great technologist. I've got to help provide technology to help this happen. So the first computer I developed very quickly, a modification of something else, I would give it away for free, passed out all my designs, no copyright notices, and I said, for $300, you could actually build a useful computer. It works with your home TV, which is free output instead of buying a teletype that costs as much as a car or two. Video screens were so unaffordable. I'm not going to talk about them being realistic. See, I'm one of those guys that's practical. I want to look for something of an affordable approach. Passed out my designs for free. Trouble is, people weren't really good at getting chip designs and soldering their own chips together and building their own things. They didn't want that. They wanted complete products. And that Steve Jobs was very good at complete products. We'd been selling my designs for about 5 years at that point in time. And so that was one of the big reasons for starting Apple Computer. An interesting, I was very much into humanist. You know, the fact is, the social revolution was more important to me. Even though I sat there silently about it. That was how we were going to change people's lives, but it needed the technology revolution to happen. You know, when I go to, I'm emotionally struck by so many of the speeches I've heard today, because like when I go to Florence, Italy, and I go to this one little church and you look at all the tombstones, there it is, side by side, Galileo and Marconi. And I break into tears. I'm almost choking up now every time I sit there. Minds are more important to me. I grew up and my dad talked to me about, you know, some people just like to force their way, you know, politicians and all that, or military approach, you know, they like to fight and be bullies. And some people use their brain and try to talk things out and figure them out. And I always wanted to be on the brain side of things, which is why I like this group so much and why it's so important. People with brains can understand what TED's all about and how important it is, and realize what a lot of the world that doesn't act this way, you know, is missing. I've always been for that individual versus the people who have power and rich, because they can sometimes buy their way and force their way. When we started personal computers, the world was open to TED's ideas. I wish more of it had come about early. Of course, the internet wasn't there yet. But the thing is, now we've got huge companies, huge corporations, and they kind of are in a position that they just have to make whatever decision they want, and you live with it. I mean, I don't want to talk about what Google did to their maps recently that totally took out a feature that people loved and was incredible and made it so miserable and difficult to use. But it doesn't matter once you're big enough. And so anyway, I wanted to build this little device for people that they could go in and prove that yeah, we can change life, we can change the world with small little pieces of technology, and we will have control for a while. We'll be masters. We said this in the Homebrew Computer Club. We will be masters of our own destiny. You know, we won't have it forced on us and told us, you know, what to do. We'll be able to think, I have a problem. I can write a program and solve it. Learning how to program was key to it. Now we know we don't learn how to program, we just learn how to click on an app and it's already written for us. But the idea was great that if you developed a little bit of talent and you used it, you could do these kind of things. And then you have to have a lot of great ideas. And in my technology world, I was really far ahead, but I don't want to describe it all. But one of the ideas was color. You know, Ted spoke about, well, there were video terminals that existed. Well, maybe, yeah, there were, and they were extremely expensive, and you'd almost never see them in a business or anything. But the key to an affordable computer at first was going to be free input-output. And that meant your home TV, because since you already owned it, it was free. And one night, I was working on a project with Steve Jobs, 4 days and nights without sleep. By the way, I've been, 60 hours now with 8 hours sleep. I slept last night, but I had an all-nighter the wrong night, you know, a perfect storm of computer downloads and all. So, but I was so tired, your head floats away. And sometimes you want to be a dreamer, you know, there's a mixture of abilities and left brain stuff and then dreaming and thinking of new ideas. And here I saw that they made hardware video games in those days at Atari, arcade games. I saw a dot moving left and right on a screen, changing colors. Red, blue, yellow, this, and I was so tired, my head's hardly half awake only, and it's like a hypnotic light show, you know, some kind of hypnotic effect. Anyway, I watched the color and I went back and I started thinking ideas, and I know how you generate color, precision parts, differential calculus, design circuits that cost hundreds of dollars to generate color on American television. I don't know why. For some stupid idea, I thought of this little $1 chip. I'm in the digital world too. $1 chip with 4 little ones and zeros, And I realized if I put them on the wire into the TV would think it was color, because I knew how the TV worked. You could never read how to do things in a book. And I look at Ted's ideas, and it's like he was the first one. Where did he come up with those ideas of how this world would work? And you'd have links and information that was connected to itself and all that. And I don't think that you always have to link to a source that is sort of the master and can be changed. I think it's also okay sometimes to copy it and paste it so you can have your original takeoff the way you want it to be. We came up with this program in Apple called HyperCard, okay? And it was based on hyperlinks on a real device. It was really put into practice for an affordable price, and the price was free because we shipped it with every Macintosh. And Bill Atkinson wrote it. He just got the ideas, and he wrote it. And then he got to work with a programmer and programmed a simple language where you could type in human commands and up would pop menus and things like this. It was that beautiful, such a beautiful start. You could click on words, and he had a method. He'd worked with a lot of people on different methods, and you'd kind of have to draw a little square over a word, and if you clicked on that word, boom, it would take you to another card of information. Very, very powerful. So here was this HyperCard system, and the language that it was written in. I liked simple languages that read kind of English. There's no reason a computer program has to be so non-understandable. And so I wrote many a program when I was teaching young children for 8 years. I wrote many a program in both HyperTalk from Apple and in Logo and in AppleScript from Apple. They all read a little bit English-like. In every single case, this HyperCard program by Bill Atkinson, the HyperTalk was more readable. It read more like what the program was really doing. It was shorter and it was faster. In every case. Beautiful language, but sometimes things get missed by the world. I think that was the finest program, single program I ever had in my life. It was a whole environment before the internet where you could click on things and get more information. The internet came. Oh, what a breath of fresh air. The first time I ever saw it. My gosh, you can send messages. You can see web pages being broadcast from all over the world. There's no limits. Limitless we're talking about today. And it was free and it was so open. It was like open source. And my gosh, this is what this is going to bring to humanity. Now we have an area of freedom where we're not controlled by governments. We're not controlled by rules. We just communicate with each other, and it works. And it's sort of a shame now to see that the internet is actually kind of being used more to control us as the method, a great method to control us, better than before in some ways. So that bothers me. So let's see what I was going to say next. Anyway, we should always be working towards goals to make things easy in life, in computers. This was one of the big keys in Apple. A guy named, we brought in some great thinkers from Xerox PARC like Alan Kay, and Jeff Raskin, who was a member of the Homebrew Computer Club, came to Steve Jobs and I. He had taught classical music at UC San Diego, and he came to us and he told us that you have to put a lot of work into a product to make it work so easy that a human walks up in the human world and the human looks at a screen, kind of gets ideas and knows how to do things without having to be an expert who has been trained for years on it. The other way is you put all the chips in a machine and a person comes up and they have to be taught how to flip all the ones and zeros and type computer gibberish and all this. That's the difficult way. To me, it's the human versus the technology. Which is more important, And good thinkers always would say the human should be more important. And yet sometimes engineers like to stop at the quick example. Get your product done, get it working, get it shipped. Jeff Raskin was a very important person in the world of computer thought, just like Ted is, brought so much of that into Apple. He was also, he'd gone to UC San Diego. I'll tell another story. One day in Apple, we were a small enough company, not like today, that we found a Pascal system, a new computer language that universities were using. This is back in the days when there wasn't much more than BASIC, Fortran, Algo, PL1. But we heard about Pascal developed at UC San Diego, and Apple's business people turned it down. So the business people would have been Steve Jobs and Mike Margola and a couple others. They had turned it down, and our software manager, great guy, was telling us this, about 5 of us, and Bill Atkinson looked at me and he said, you and I should get on a plane and fly down to UC San Diego tonight and put our code into it for graphics and for disks and bring it back and prove to Apple it works. So we got on a plane on our own. Apple didn't send us or anything. We just went down there, worked all night, an all-nighter with the students in the lab, and brought back a system, and Apple changed its mind. And that's why we got a Pascal system, which benefited me in later life, because when I went back to Berkeley to get my degree, everything was in Pascal, and I didn't have to use their system, because I was one of the few that had their own personal computer. They weren't very common back then. Artificial intelligence, computers seeming to be smart, having an intelligence, has been a very big theme in my life. First big program I ever wrote was the Knight's Tour of Chess, where a knight hits every square exactly once. And I wrote it and nothing was coming out. This computer can do a million things a second. It's an IBM 1130, a million things a second. A human being, as we said, can count 1, 2, and if I could count every second, it'd take me weeks to get to a million. Nothing came out of the computer. I analyzed my program. I started printing out chessboards in the next week, and I realized the program was doing everything right, trying every possibility in some order, and it was going to get a solution in 10 to the 25th years. What that told me was the difference between computers and human mind, the brain. That a computer can solve a problem, but it doesn't yet know how to generate the method. A human brain, has the intuition factor and to actually come up with the method to solve problems. So we're not there yet in computers. It might be a scary day if we ever get there. Eventually what happened was in Apple, we came out with the first message pad, sort of like a small tablet called the Newton Message Pad. And the first day I had it, I was in the San Francisco airport with my kids flying to Disney World. And I got a phone call, so I wrote a little note to myself on the notepad. The first thing I ever did or wrote on it. I wrote, Sarah, dentist, Tuesday, 2 p.m., as a reminder to me. And I saw a button called Assist, and I didn't know what it did. I clicked Assist. It must have looked at what I just wrote. It opened up the calendar. Tuesday at 2 p.m., it put in dentist, and it grabbed Sarah out of my contact list, and it changed my life forever. Because from then on, I wanted to live in the human world. Writing things with my own hand. Now it's speaking with voice. I want to live in the human world and have machines understand what I mean. They don't understand what I mean yet, but I want them to be able to understand some level and being able to accomplish things for me. Now we've got Siri and we talk to it and it's so great. When I got Siri, it was just for ordering a taxi. I didn't think much of it. And my wife and I were sitting at Lake Tahoe. We didn't know. She asked me, is that the largest lake in California? I said, I think so. I don't know. I did searching, typing, all this mechanical procedure that I hate now, tapping in things into Google and looking on my iPhone. And I got articles about Lake Tahoe, articles about California lakes. I couldn't find out if it was the largest. So I just said as a joke, I smiled at her because I laughed at her while I was doing this because I knew it was a big joke and could never go through. I went to Siri, the only thing I got left on my phone, I haven't tried. I said, what are the largest 5 lakes in California? And it brought up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lake Tahoe was number 3. What? I said, I wonder if it does math. I said, what are the prime numbers greater than 87? And it started 89. It went on up from there. It understood me, it seemed. This was amazing. Used Wolfram Alpha. Of course, by the week that Apple bought Siri, a year later, Apple bought Siri. And the week they bought them, I'd say, what are the 5 largest lakes? And it would bring up lakefront property. Every single, I go to a web page now, we're talking about links, and these are all links. I go to a web page now, and it brings up ding, 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 all these little advertising things have to fill in for, 10 seconds before I can get the information I really want. I wonder if there's a way around that. We need lots more bright people in the future. But you know what? I can understand why a lot of young people look at Ted's work, and realize, oh my gosh, it's like young people that weren't alive during Bob Dylan's big starting days and hearing him and the Beatles and all that, and discovering that these things can be really, really good and impressive. But you have to have the right you have to have a good mind to be good at that. Looking forward, sure, we can say, well, look what we could have had and we don't have. And that can be a little bit alarmist, but we really have to be constructive. When I grew up, I just said, if somebody's bad to me, I'll still be good to them. If somebody, you don't argue with people, you just think, you don't complain about what you got. You say, what are the best steps I can take that move in a forward direction, a constructive direction, and, towards the world of Xanadu? I have a feeling this is going to be going on long after Ted is even gone. That people are still going to be going in that direction and crediting Ted for it. And I'm glad that he gets, the notice of people around here and all this, because it's very hard to do something the first time. When you're that little starting seed, the first person thinks out ideas and puts them down and works on them. So much work is so hard, And as soon as they've done it and people know it's possible, then anybody can jump in and say, oh yeah, it's trivial, nothing to it. But you know what? Here we are. And even when I first met Ted, I said, well, yeah, I remember Xanadu. What are you doing now? Oh yeah, I'm still into Xanadu. The thing is, he had it so right from the beginning. And that's an honor, and I'm honored myself to be able to speak and say some of these things about Ted. Thank you very much. And I guess we could try question answer if there are any. Okay, Ted?
We did meet before Oxford. It was at Hackers 1.
But maybe that was the first time I met you, was Hackers 1. Yep. Hackers 1, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yes, I remember that, up in Sausalito. Right. In that area.
Military circumstances.
Yes. Second time I met you was Oxford. Yeah. So, thank you all very much.